Hello. In this video, we're going to look at variable scope in Python. You've been using variables since pretty much the first day of learning Python, but we haven't looked closely at what the scope of variables is. And scope refers to where in the program any particular variable can be accessed. For the most part, you've been coding with local variables so far. Local variables are variables that are assigned inside of a function. These variables can only be used by the function in which they are assigned. Let's take a look at that real quick. Let's say I have just some kind of function, and I set a variable a to be the string boiler up. Then I tell the function to print a. Now I'm going to call my function, and I'm also going to try to print a, and let's see what happens. You can see already I'm getting an error that a is undefined. Okay, so we did print a the first time, and that comes from the print statement inside the function from when I called the function here. The second time I called print a, I got an error because a is not defined, and Spider was warning me of that here. So a is not defined for use outside the scope of this function. And if we go look at the variable explorer, you'll see that a isn't even there because it is a local variable that it can only be used inside of this function. If I remove this print statement, the code will run fine, no error. All right. Let's look at another example where the print statement and the variable assignment is flipped. So I'm going to try to print enter func a, and then I'll define a as plus equal to 1, and then I'm going to print exit func a. And then outside my function, I'm going to say a equals 1. I want a as an argument of my function. And then we're going to print before func a. Okay. So take a second to look at this code and see what you think the outcome is going to be when I run it. What is going to show up in my console? All right, let's run the code and see what happens, and then we'll break down the process of what happened in this code. Okay, so my code printed before the function, enter the function, exit the function, and after the function. So before the function runs, a is 1, because we defined it to be 1 here. Once we enter the function, a is still 1. And then here, a gets 1 added to it, so a is now 2. So in this print statement, when we say exit function, it prints 2. Now, in this statement after the function, a is 1 again, because this a is a local variable that only got updated locally inside the function. The global variable here, a equals 1, did not get updated after the function. It doesn't save to the global variable. So global variables are the other type of variable we have in Python. These are assigned outside of functions, like we just did in this example. They can be used by any function in the program, but updating them inside a function does not update them globally. Here's another example. Take a second and see if you can understand what the output of this code is going to be after I run it. So when we run this code, we get Purdue FYE, boiler up, hammer down printed. So let's take a look. We define our functions first, and they both have print statements. And then we define the global variable a as hammered down. Then function 1 runs and prints its statement. Function 2 runs and prints that statement. And then the print a runs. So notice that even though a is the parameter here, the parameter gets set to whatever the argument is in the function call. So these a values that are local get set to their arguments, Purdue FYE, or boiler up, while this print statement that is outside of the functions takes the global variable, hammered down, and then prints that. And you can see in your variable explorer that hammered down is set as a global variable, a. Okay, here's another example where we have 3 functions. Notice that none of them have any parameters, but they all use the variable a. So function 1 is just printing a. Function 2 defines local a as eggs, and then prints a. And function 3 uses this keyword global with the variable a, and then says a equals and toast. Take a second and see if you can figure out what will happen when I run this code and I call function 1, 2, 1, 3, 1. So when I run it, I get the output bacon, eggs, bacon, and toast. So function 1 prints the global variable a. Since it didn't have a parameter assigned to it, it just takes the global variable a. Function 2 locally overwrites the global variable a and sets it to be eggs, so it prints eggs. But then when we go back to function 1, that global variable still exists as bacon, and so this prints bacon again. In function 3, when we call global a, then any variable that comes after that gets set as a global variable. So this a here is not local, but is now global because we use this keyword statement. So then when we go back and call function 1 again, and it prints a is set to and toast. And notice that my global variable a up here changed to also be and toast. Now, you should probably never do this. You should avoid using the keyword global if at all possible. There's usually a better way. But this is an option that Python offers to us. And in fact, it is better when programming to avoid global variables at all, unless you're going to set some kind of constant like gravity that you use multiple times in multiple functions throughout your program. But generally speaking, there are better ways to program, and sticking to local variables is safer.